Who has a question?
So, I know you said last week you're a speed eater. I'm actually reverse of that. What should the normal, because I know you're saying eat every 2 to 3 hours, but I found when I was journaling, it's taking me like an hour and a half to finish a meal. So that obviously is screwing
And why is that? Is it
because
because of
I
how?
eat while I work.
Okay. And I'm asking that because it's, we've had that situation in the past, and if anyone didn't hear, it was, like, how to decide how fast to eat, how long should it take. Just to clarify one thing that you said eating every 2 to 3 hours. It is every 2 to 4.
I'm sorry.
So
Okay.
I just in case people heard it, don't be afraid if your meals stretch closer to 4 hours. In terms of the pace that you're eating, typically when people have an issue where it takes too long, it's one of two things. Either they're eating while they're working and they're super busy, or they haven't gotten their appetite quite to where it needs to be yet. If it's eating while you're working, can we set up your meal plan in a way where you have your bigger meals at times that you have more time? And can we use shakes or smaller snacks or smaller meals during the busier times? So that's something for you to definitely, let's make sure that's something we address when we break out.
Okay.
Are you just crazy busy all the time?
Until I get home. But
Okay.
it wasn't a big meal, it was a yogurt, but it took an hour and a half to finish it. So it wasn't like I was having a huge, but my biggest meal is at night after when I get home,
Okay.
which is not always the right thing to do because then I go to bed a couple hours later.
That's not necessarily wrong.
Okay.
And this is cool, especially when we do these groups. I want as many of our members as participate in possible, but I almost get a little excited when it's a smaller group because we can get very down to the specifics.
Okay.
I want to understand more about your schedule, and I want to understand how we can make those changes. So for myself, for example, I took out food yesterday, had to wait for the microwave, and then got the laundry list of people asking me to do something because it was here. I missed that meal. So I have to now troubleshoot. I've been having a shake or a bar in the morning. I'm thinking that based on just the time of the year it is here and what we're trying to accomplish, I need to switch that, and I need to have my big meal, one of my big meals at home in the morning. Because I know there's one point midday I can eat. I know I can eat when I get home. I know I can eat in the morning if I plan for it. If I now have my shakes and bars during those busier times, then I'm more likely to do it. And I've actually switched to having more shakes than bars because I can literally just drink it. It's not as rude to drink a shake when somebody's asking a question as it is to sit there and be like, I'm sorry you just saw that. That was weird. So is that something that if we change the type of food you're having that you could not take forever to eat?
Yeah, you know what it is? It's just I don't take time out to do it. So I leave at 6:30 in the morning and I don't take out time during the day to eat. So whatever, even if it's drinking a shakes, when I was drinking shakes, it takes 2 hours to finish one.
Can you take the time?
If I left the office, I could do that.
And this is where during, we don't expect to change everybody's life throughout the year. You have to go back to some normal life at some point. But when you're surging, it's what sacrifices can you make? I can eat. I just don't say no to people. So I either have to have the smaller meals or just say leave me alone for 15 minutes or go hide. We call it the employee suite. It's 2 steps up into a janitor's closet. Can you, if you can make that change, then make it. And you only have to do it for one meal. Because you can have shakes or just something small that you can that won't matter as much as if you get interrupted. If that's not a complete answer for you, let's circle back to it. Let's make sure we address it today. Any other questions?
So I know the third nutrition habit is eat vegetables with each meal. And as somebody who's journaled before this, I love this format because you have to put the little checks in there, and I can clearly see that I do not have vegetables with every meal. However, my question is, if you have a lot of vegetables, what if 2 out of my 5 meals are big salads? That's a lot of vegetables. So then to eat vegetables throughout the other meals, is it okay to put more vegetables in another meal than to have it at every meal?
So
Does that make sense?
no, it's a great question.
Okay.
In this situation, the answer for Jody might be different than the answer I give everyone else. Jody's been through this. We've done one-on-one nutrition, she's been through these programs. I know that she has attempted to fit certain things in. Yes, you can have, but I would recommend having like 3 of your meals have bigger amounts of vegetables
Okay.
to offset the other 2. So that's one option.
Okay.
I recommend for everyone else though, actually put in the work to try to get the vegetables in every meal. Like try to follow the rules before we come up with a way to make a substitution. But knowing what you do, I don't think it's an issue. I actually do the same thing.
Okay.
But I know for a fact that I'm going to have the more vegetables in those meals, and I know that I've tried consistently to try to get it. I just personally don't like to put like spinach in my shakes, and I just ran out of green powder. So that's another option. You could put greens in your shake,
I don't like it in my shake.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't like the taste. So,
or you can get like a greens powder, which I don't think we ordered yet, did we? Just have more veggies in the other meals. But make sure if you look at the portions here, like a fistful of veggies is the minimum per meal that you should have for most women. Now,
meal? Just one
per
per
meal.
meal? I thought we
Oh,
had
that's the
like 2
minimum?
cups.
what's that?
I thought we had to have 2 cups per meal of vegetables.
Who told you that?
I don't know.
She's on an old.
I think I'm on the old one.
See, when you change your mindset, so if
See?
you've done another challenge, and so what I'm learning is we're learning along with you
Yeah.
in that maybe you don't need to have that much, or maybe at one point there was a meal plan, but he wants that meal plan out of your
I
head.
know.
Vegetables, you can have as many as you want.
I said a minimum of.
You know.
Oh,
Right.
So that's
So,
easier.
And that's why we
It's
want,
easier.
yeah, because we don't want like a crazy freak nutrition robot. Like, it's just not how that shit works. And we tried it, and people got great results, and then they came back the next time and tried to get the same great results from the same starting place. If it doesn't at least work you into something, either you can do this program, learn a ton, and then have life get in the way.
Yeah.
But you've learned the habits. When we've done meal plans in the past, we gave in, we tried it, because that's what everybody wanted, and that's what a lot of our friends in the industry were doing. It just doesn't work. At least the way we do it. So yeah, I'm sorry, but try to get that out of your head. I said a minimum though. If you want more, rock on.
Go rock on,
Where does popcorn fit in?
It's a starch.
Thought so.
Corn's not a vegetable. Just because they put it with the vegetables doesn't mean it's a vegetable. I went to actually a supermarket once and there was cracked cocaine right next to the avocado. It's not a fat.
Wait, what is
yeah.
that?
What store was that?
Dallas wants to.
I like how everyone tried to process it and like, no, he just said crack cocaine. Yeah, just because
Looking at each other.
just because it was put there, like, and that's how it's been sold to us, it's not a vegetable. It's a carb. It's a starch. So where does it fall? If it's something you love, like I use my mom as an example all the time because she's like obsessed with popcorn. She's like, but I need to have my popcorn. Yo, I'm not telling you to stop having it, but if you want to follow the habits, maybe it's not the best idea. If it's something you love, like have the right portion after a workout or count it as your cheat. But like, it's very easy to have a bag of popcorn. Well, it's air pop, so it's not bad for you. It's still a bunch of carbs. Still a decent amount of starch.
Are there better carbs or starches than others to have after a workout?
Anything that causes inflammation for you on the bad list, so anything that makes you not feel good or feel bloated or anything like that, avoid. After a workout is actually a time that you have more leeway. So post-workout is a time that you can have a little more refined carb. You actually want, if you think of the anytime meal versus post-workout meals, the way they're set up is like really the post-workout meals, more carbs, potentially less fat. When I say potentially, I'll get into that in a second. We're trying to speed up gastric emptying. So we want the stomach to empty quickly because we want the protein to be broken down into amino acids quickly, and we want the carbohydrates to be broken down into sugar and into the bloodstream quickly so we can start the repair process. We need the amino acids for muscle. We also need the carbs to replenish your glycogen store, to store carbs in your muscles. It's also in the liver, but post-workout we're worried about the muscle. If it's a faster digesting carb, so if somebody here is like, but I really like this, but it's not the best, it might be a good time to have it after a workout. Are there better ones to have? If we're thinking about the fact that this is health and fitness, not yo, let's get shredded, bro, then yeah, just making better choices over time in general are a great idea. I don't follow sports nutrition guidelines even when I'm on point. Like I don't have fast digesting carbs after a workout. I don't have only faster digesting proteins. I just eat healthy food in the right amounts. That's just me. If people take it further, and I might guide some clients to take it further. But to me, health is the most important part, not necessarily breaking down the perfect macros and macro types, or carb types. Does that make sense, Micah?
Yeah.
I lost him.
Yeah.
He's gonna say yeah.
I was listening.
Are there better types, the better types of carbs that you know are better carbs?
Okay.
You know, and we're gonna go into different carb types in a couple minutes.
Good,
What's that?
good.
All right, I'm glad you're happy.
Glad to know that.
You know, beyond that, as you get deeper into gaining muscle, I know Micah and John primary goal right now. Anyone else's primary goal gaining muscle? For all the people that want to drop fat, before you look at them and give them a dirty look, get over yourself. Because muscle gain, and it's just funny because when you get people who are open about it and are like, well, I already lost the fat I want to lose, now I have to gain muscle, every time you get muscle gain is just as hard. So as you get deeper into it, we might go into some of those sports nutrition guidelines that we talked about. So, bro. Any other questions before we dive into this?
So like, ideally, is the goal to be able, when you journal a meal, to be able to tick off all 3 boxes, like
Micah?
protein, veggie, healthy.
Yeah.
So if you like, I like to have a protein bar before I come work out, or sometimes before I leave school, so I don't get home and eat all the cookies. So then, if I eat a protein bar, that counts as a meal. Am I supposed to then have a handful of carrots with it?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Or
That's a perfect example of what I was talking about, because I do that often. I grab a bar on the way out, so I'll double up on my vegetables on the meal before it, because that's like quick, like grab and go kind of thing, so.
Yeah,
And that's
like in my
good.
head it
But if
doesn't
you're
match.
adding
Like
a
protein bar and carrots to me is like
Disgusting.
just eating
It's like
to eat
lamb
it,
and
like
tuna.
it's just kind of
It's like disgusting.
Thanks, Ruth.
yeah, and this is where it's gonna be. I just want you to try.
Right.
Right, so like, if you look at the fact that if you've tried it and you're like, the protein bar is what works for me right now, and I need to move on and work on other things, then yeah, add the vegetables and other meals. But the key is really try, not say, I just don't like it, or I kind of tried.
The baby cucumbers, that's a good
Yeah,
idea.
so
Yeah.
I use the baby cucumbers with the
That's
protein
ideal.
bars because there's almost no flavor to the baby cucumbers, so it's not like you're.
But is there
having
nutrition in that?
What?
Is there nutrition? I
I
mean, I try.
We have cucumber haters here?
Never mind. Trying to eat like broccoli and peppers, things with color.
First step is technically follow the rules. Is a cucumber a vegetable?
Yes.
Right? So, and I'm not being obnoxious. Like, first step, technically follow the rules, and then when we circle back around, it's kind of like the FMS. With the FMS, we address mobility, then motor control and static stability, and then the bigger level, the bigger patterns like lunging and squatting. And when you get good enough in all of them, we circle back, and how good is your mobility, and then work back up. It's the same thing. So, I'm sorry if that didn't help clarify anything for anyone. I'm
I
training board.
happen to love cucumbers.
Okay. But if you start with that, and we're getting vegetables at every meal, and you have a firm grasp on it, and that fits in your lifestyle, continue going. And then next time we address something like this, maybe you're on point so much that that's what we refine. But is it a vegetable? Yes or no? Move on for now. All right. So let's go into this. We'll come back around. So, did you raise your hand if you attended meeting 1 or watched it online? Raise your hand if you did not.
I don't think I did.
Cool. So,
I watched a lot of things, but I don't think I watched that.
I would say for you, don't worry about it. You've already gotten a decent amount of the basics. If anyone else didn't watch it, please take the time, even if it's just in 5-minute clips. Like, if it's a topic you know, you can fast forward a little bit, but it's worth the time. Anyone I know that's ever gotten good at anything gets obsessed about it. And I don't want you to be obsessed about health and nutrition and fitness in the way that it leads to an issue. but I want you to have periods of time throughout the year that you're obsessed about it in the sense that it's what you spend a lot of your time on, and part of it's learning. So, just throwing that out there. Raise your hand if you are food journaling. Cool. Raise your hand if you started today. 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, 5 days ago, a week ago, longer. Cool. I'm just happy you're doing it. If you're not food journaling and it's something that is an issue for you, you're not sure why we should do it, you hate it, whatever it is, let's make sure we address it today before you leave. How many workouts did you get in from 2:09 to 2:15? I don't need an answer from everyone, but just be aware, how many workouts did you get in? Did you get in 2, 3, 4, 5? How many was it? And is it one more than you do on a regular basis? If you just started, we're just trying to pick a number that works for you. If you've been at this a while, we're trying to bump up one. So just be honest with yourself if you're falling short or you're crushing it. How many workouts do you have scheduled from tomorrow through next Thursday? If you don't know yet, on the way out we have a computer where we can schedule. These little things that don't sound like, okay, cool, let's move on to nutrition. These are important, so please make sure we're aware of that. There's a quote. If you put 9 women that are pregnant in a room, you can't have a baby in 1 month. Chase Jarvis. I had to put in something that made a point and was mildly offensive. That's my style. I like that quote because it's kind of funny. And this is somebody, Chase Jarvis is a guy who's a thought leader in terms of education and creativity. He's a photographer, so of course I'm obsessed with him. But his whole idea is that you just can't rush the process. If you have a bunch of people taking a shortcut, you don't get somewhere any faster, is really the point behind that. So if anyone is struggling right now, understand that you're supposed to be. If anyone's not struggling right now, understand it's going to come soon. You can't rush improving your health through health and nutrition, through fitness and nutrition. All you can do is keep trying. So, macro amounts for protein. Women, 20 to 30 grams per meal. Men, 40 to 60 per meal. If you go into the Super You group and look at the How to Create a Perfect Meal, I think that's the name of the infographic. You can measure 2 different ways. There's visual cues listed on that. So it's generally a palm-sized portion for most proteins. So most like meat-based proteins, it's a palm-sized portion. Is that amount for women? For men, it's 2. The other way you do it is by buying a scale. I would refer to the sheet of paper that I kept by my food scale, and I would just be like, I need to have 40 grams of protein right now. I'm having chicken. This is how much. And it's as simple as going into Google. We talked about it last time. Type in chicken nutrition facts and it comes up. Like if you're on a desktop, it literally is the thing that pops up on the right. It's easy to find. Protein types. We're going to break up the table in a minute. Veggies, about a fist amount for women. Call it a cup if you're going to measure it. I'm not a big fan of measuring vegetables because you can have more. I'll use a measuring cup to make sure I get enough. So I'll use it as like a scoop. And I never try to I'm not like shaving the top off the broccoli. It's just, veggies are a good thing to eye. Like, I don't want you to eye the amount for fat or for protein. I want you to know how much you're having. But we want to, over the next 6 weeks, try our best to change how we speak about this. There's vegetables, there's fruits, there's starches, and then there's other carbs. So you're going to hear me say carbs sometimes because I'm talking about an amount to have, but we want to make sure we understand where each one falls. And it'll take some time over the next 6 weeks, but I want to know in a meal, like, did you have a vegetable? Did you have a starch? Did you have a fruit? Did you have other carbs like sugar? Sugary drinks or sugary food? So yeah, it's a vegetable, but just try your best over the next 6 weeks to just wrap your head around that. Carb amounts, if we're on the habit where we're having starches only after a workout, we want this amount post-workout from a starch or a starchier fruit. It doesn't mean that you have to have it with every meal. And I just want everyone to understand this. If the habit that you're working on is eating every 2 to 4 hours, it doesn't mean be a slob, right? It doesn't mean don't try to be reasonable, but it also doesn't mean that you're doing a poor job if you had 20 to 30 grams of carbs from rice when the only thing you're working on right now is eating every 2 to 4 hours. or the only thing you're working on right now is eating protein with every meal. Does that distinction make sense? As we get deeper and deeper, we're gonna base it on this. If it's fruit, just don't go over that amount, right? Because you can have fruit at a meal that's not after a workout. Make sense, everyone? But remember, what's the main habit you're working on? That's how we measure success. Fat amounts, this is important. No matter what habit you're on, I want you to own this right away. Because it's a very easy way to fall off. Fat amounts, 7 to 12 grams of fat per meal is a good starting place. Understand we might go higher for some people, but 7 to 12 grams of fat per meal for most women, 15 to 25 for most men. The reason I want you to own this right away is start measuring your fats. I don't care what habit you're working on, start measuring your fats. You can have if you have 10 extra grams of fat from olive oil, that's 2 teaspoons. That's so easy to go too far over. That's 90 extra calories, and if you do that 5 times a day, and you do that consistently over 6 weeks, and like, well, I'm not gonna have extra olive oil. You have it on your salad, you have eggs, and you have avocado and some bacon, and you're not measuring fat. It's just very easy to do a lot of really awesome things and not make progress. So even if we're not being super specific about the amounts, right away, measure it so you know. I put the habits on the last page. If we look down to habit number 9, eat as wide a variety of good foods as often as possible. But I want to clarify something. That's habit number 9. If you haven't owned 1 through 8 yet, doesn't matter. Now, can we break some of these habits down and work on, like we have the macro habits, and then we can have more micro tactics. If you take some of the principles that come later on, so like breaking the rule 10% of the time, right? So being on plan 90% of the time. We're gonna analyze that with you having protein to decide if you should move on to the next habit, right? In terms of the variety, when you start eating, if we use protein as an example again, chicken, bro, mad chicken. If you have chicken all day, technically you're having protein. But we're not gonna have you move on to the next habit until you have something that's sustainable, until it's a true habit. So at that point, we mix some variety in. But a little bit of variety is enough. Like, Jody, can you just rattle off the vegetables you eat and the proteins you eat?
Sure.
You don't
Want
mind?
my little list?
Yeah, I know you have it, that's why I asked.
Yeah, so protein, turkey burger, chicken, obviously, eggs, shrimp, tuna fish. I even have a hamburger patty on here because just in case I end up having a cheat meal. Greek yogurt, almonds, peanuts, and sometimes I do full cut rolls, which I know is not the best, but
I never said not to do it.
like the maple turkey, I'll roll that, I'll take 4 ounces of that and just dip it in mustard.
So how many is that?
10.
Thank you for making the exact point I wanted to make. I was nervous for a second.
Yeah,
When she
that's
started,
what
she was doing a very good job, but it wasn't sustainable to stay that way. So if you don't have that much variety right now, I'll pick in a week. Typically, we'll have 4 different protein sources in my house. Like outside of like bars or shakes. And the next week we might buy something slightly different. Variety can be over time. You don't have to have 7 different protein sources in 1 week. Like
But the biggest thing for me was actually, when I made my shopping list, is saying to myself, what am I eating for protein this week? What am I eating for vegetables this week? Because if you don't buy it, you can't prepare it, you don't have it, so then you just eat the same thing. So I always made a list of what protein I was going to have, so I made sure there was a couple different things.
So moral of the story, if it starts off and you're technically following the rule, you win. Over time, get variety. You don't want to double fat. So if you're having a protein that's higher in fat, I wouldn't add like plant-based fat to it. So I wouldn't have, listen, if you're going out for sushi and you want to rock out, like, I'm not going to tell you not to get salmon avocado. But, but if you're trying to be on plan, I wouldn't have salmon and then put olive oil on your vegetables. I wouldn't have beef and then have avocado with it. Even though it sounds great. So like, that's also over time you'll start to we'll be able to analyze when we're working on fats. Are we getting a good enough variety of fats? But at first, just don't double fat. Does that concept make sense, everyone?
Yeah.
And that's where when I write down my macro, when I write down the amount of protein in a food, I'll also write down right next to it the amount of fat in that same food. So I know how much fat's in chicken, I know how much, I mean, not off the top of my head, but I know how much is in beef, so I just know whether I have to add other fat or not. So food journals, who has their food journals completed? Who does not have them completed? Okay. And by not completed, do you mean not done, not with you, what's the, just so I know how to help you.
Not done.
Okay,
I don't have the check.
okay.
Oh,
So just so everybody understands that,
okay.
if you put, so if you have, for example, if she had some, she wouldn't normally eat bread. If it was post-workout, it's a carb, post-workout, it's a starch post-workout, it counts. Like it's a post-workout meal on plan. And then she decides to have alcohol when she's out, it's separate. It's tracked separately. And the way the food journal works, we don't actually count your sugary food, sugary drink, and alcohol does not contribute to the number of meals. And I want you to understand why. If we have extra rice, or we have just actual food that's off plan, you're getting some level of nutrition. So there is a positive even if there's a negative. Right? We want both factored in. If you're just having alcohol, fun doesn't factor into the spreadsheet. Okay? So it just does, like Micah just explained, it doesn't affect the number of meals, but it does go into the calculation.
Okay.
And there's actually a calculation that's percent of time off plan without alcohol, sugary drinks, sugary food, and then total with that included. So you can start to differentiate, what do I need to change? Is it just the food choices I'm having, or do I have to cut back the fun for a short period of time?